it was amazing to me. I was going along, happy as could be, and then was feeling a little sheepish, kind of like, well, kind of feeling kind of, And there it was, in front of me, right on the road, a flock of sheep. I couldn't believe it. They were protesting. It was an Occupy the Sheepfold. I thought, oh my God, what's happened to the sheep? What has gotten into their brain? What has become so reverse nature that the sheep now have become smart enough to protest? After all, we've been calling them stupid for so long. They are stupid, aren't they? Or are they? You see, recently I had the opportunity to listen to a really good pastor teach on sheep, and teach about people and teach about things. It was a good study. He used the typical, analogy of sheep, how dumb they are and how stupid they are and how stupid sheep are and the nature of sheep, how stupid that is. And, I kind of smiled, and didn't say much, and I was blessed by the teaching because it was right on. There's nothing wrong with using sheep as being stupid, because on the one hand, when you're standing outside of the sheepfold, they kind of look stupid. If you're not a sheep, they look kind of stupid. If you're not a shepherd, they even look kind of stupid. But I've been having this talk with this guy down the street. Now he's kind of interesting. He's got this good housekeeping seal of approval. And he's been telling me that with that seal of approval, they call him the Good Shepherd because he takes care of his sheep a certain way. He's able to look at his sheep, talk to his sheep. He's able to have his sheep know him, and he knows them. Matter of fact, he tells me all kinds of interesting things about his sheep that I find really interesting. Because you see, for everything that people have told me was stupid about sheep, he's telling me how smart they are. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I kind of had to put on my thinking cap and take a second look at sheep. And maybe this will inspire you. But it was interesting to me because let's talk about how stupid sheep are for a minute. That is, if they are that stupid. Because after all, God made them, so they must be stupid. God must have put them on the earth to show us how stupid some things are stupid, because that's how stupid could be, right? If we wanted something to be stupid, we wouldn't call it stupid, we would call it sheep. Sheep aren't just sheep, they're stupid. By comparison to, or as part of, being stupid. That's why God put them there, so we could use them as an example of how stupid an animal could be. You know the stories. You know the nature of sheep. You've all heard them before, I'm sure. The big flight. You usually think of sheep as, bad, and they, have all this kind of characteristics and all these kind of little symbolic things, and we know that certain ways people have used certain things about them to tell stories. The story about a sheep sticking his mouth, sticking his face down in a river, and when the river's running fast, washing that sheep away. I've never seen it. Now, I may be wrong, and it may be true. I've heard the story. I know there's a lot of people that tell me sheep are dumb enough, stupid enough, that being so stupid, they'll stick their mouth in to drink water in a raging river, and get washed away. Kind of like, boom, and get knocked out. Knocked down and drowned. Makes an interesting story. Kind of interesting to me. Now, you've probably heard the story too, let's put our thinking caps back on, and really look at this stupid sheep story. Because that's what it is a sheep story. Sheep are so dumb. Well, how dumb are they? Well, let me tell you how dumb they are. Yeah, no, sheep, it's so bad, the sheep. Get it? Sheep are bad. They're not good. Never mind that God created them. They're just bad. Maybe it's a bad sheep story, but we won't go there. Let's just talk about how bad sheep are. Sheep are so bad that, when they're in trouble, they're not smart enough to run for cover. Run here, run there, duck for cover, go find some help, go call out, cry out, or ask for help. No, what they do is they'll assemble themselves in a circle. They'll bunch up, bunch in, and they'll get closer and closer and closer and tighter and tighter and tighter together, so that they're all real close together, real assembled. And then the wolf can eat them. Eats them, picks them off on the outside, eats the outer ring, and then begins to work his way inward. It's pretty stupid, isn't it? I mean, if you were a sheep, what would you do? Run? I mean, being a sheep, of course, you're not going to fight, but what would you do? So, that's pretty bad how sheep are when they come to defending themselves. After all, sheep should learn how to defend themselves. I mean, that's what sheep are supposed to do in that situation. When there's a wolf, the sheep should defend themselves. They should know how. They should practice learning how. Matter of fact, I think the NRA ought to sign them up and teach them and give them guns to protect themselves. Sheep ought to be carrying guns. And you know the story about sheep, of course. How they follow each other. One sheep follows another sheep that follows another sheep. If one sheep sees one sheep going, he just keeps going, And so if one sheep runs off a cliff, all the sheep will run off the cliff. They'll just keep running off the cliff. They don't pay no attention. I've seen little mice or little kind of harbingers, I can't even think what they're called, running off cliffs. I've never seen a sheep run off a cliff, but I don't doubt it could happen. I'm not a good shepherd. I'm not even a shepherd. I don't have any sheep. But hey, it's possible, I'm sure. Somewhere, at some time, some sheep ran off a cliff somewhere, and all the other sheep followed them. Like the story says, the sheep story. Of course, we all know that, sheep, well, what can you say about sheep? They'll let some wolf walk up in sheep's clothing, and hang out with them right there beside them. They're just not smart enough to figure out that the wolf in sheep's clothing isn't a sheep. He just comes right up and starts, hanging out with them. And as long as he's hanging out with them, they don't know the difference. Oh well, dumb sheep. How dumb can they be? It's pretty stupid of them to let the wolf hang out with them. After all, he comes in the midst of them, right? In sheep's clothing. So that they can't tell the difference between one sheep and another. Because they should be judging each other. They should be judging who's a sheep and who's a wolf. They should be looking hard and figuring out, well, let's pick out and decide for ourselves, we the sheep, who is a wolf. Yeah. We the sheep will decide that. Okay. Bad sheep. Just really bad. Oh, I said this was inspiring, didn't I? Well, I guess it's kind of like a downer, isn't it? It's kind of like the more you think about sheep, the more you think about, man, why did God make sheep in the first place? Shoot. You know the other parts of sheep. Come on now. They got wool. You can shear the sheep and, provide for yourselves protection, from the elements. You can, from other sheep, cover yourself, warm yourself. You could be covered with wool. As a matter of fact, interesting thing about wool is that, wool can protect you even from when it gets wet. It'll keep you warm. Oh, that's inspiring. Wow, so there's a good thing about sheep. Yeah, that's good, Sheep have wool. Sheep produce wool. Sheep have a reason for being around. So that we can get woolified. cover ourselves, be warm, and have blankets, and have clothing. We can spin it. You know, the interesting thing about sheep too is that you know how dumb they are. Yeah, I mean, those sheep would starve to death if it wasn't for like the fact that we don't let them take care of themselves. I mean, sheep after all should be able to take care of themselves. I mean, you stick a sheep out there and guess what he's going to do? He's going to eat not only the stem of the grass, he's going to eat the stalk of the grass. He's going to eat it down to the roots, and nothing can grow after that. Nope, man, those stupid sheep. They ought to learn how to diet themselves. They had to learn how to be on a proper diet. They had to learn how to take care of themselves. They had to learn how to feed themselves. They had to learn how to provide for themselves. They had to learn that they aren't supposed to eat everything that's put in front of them. They aren't supposed to eat that which is right there in their close proximity so that they would eat it all the way, the roots. They shouldn't get down to the roots of the matter. No. Don't have sheep get down to the roots. No, we don't want them to get to the roots. We want them to only eat the surface. Just the stem and the stalk. Or maybe just the stem itself. Forget the stalk. Or maybe just the stalk. We don't want them to be getting into the roots. Now, do we? Of course, we are talking about sheep, aren't we? Or are we? You see, remember how I started this story and I told you that, I met this guy that had the good housekeeping seal of approval? Well, in my Father's house, there is a seal of approval that he has. And in my Father's house, he is called the Good Shepherd. And in my Father's house, he is called the quote-unquote person who provides for the sheep, takes care of the sheep, defends the sheep, calls his sheep by name. He knows them and they know him, and they will not follow the voice of another. As a matter of fact, when they huddle together, they cry out to the Good Shepherd for help. As a matter of fact, the Good Shepherd takes them to the place where they can eat safely and secure. As a matter of fact, when there's danger, they're not told to go looking for their own protection or to protect themselves. They're told to cry out to the Good Shepherd to take care of them. Matter of fact, I kind of find it interesting that this Good Shepherd keeps telling me with this stamp seal of approval, there's certain criteria that that shepherd had to have in order to get the good seal of approval or the good housekeeping seal of approval from his Father's house. The big house. Not just anybody could get that stamp seal of approval. Only the good shepherds could. The sheep know the Good Shepherd. They follow him because he leads them beside still waters. He restores their soul. He brings them into green pastures. Not brown pastures, but green pastures. He wants them to know him, so they eat the roots. They get into the feeding, and when they are feeding, they don't just eat some of the food. They don't just eat surface parts, or just pick some new growth. Something new and exciting that they want to eat. No, they eat everything. They consume the entire provision they've been given. And as a matter of fact, the sheep eat it daily. It's interesting how sheep get into or seem to fit what we are supposed to be called. Now, I find it interesting the sheep are so stupid that God wanted to call us stupid. Because, God said, hey, you're the sheep of my pasture. Oh, wait a minute, God. I don't want to be called a sheep. I know how stupid sheep are. I know how dumb sheep are. Matter of fact, I don't think I want to be called a sheep. You can call me something else, but for God's sakes, don't call me a sheep. Call me a goat. Well, maybe I am a goat. What goats are like? They butt heads. They assert themselves. They'll eat anything and everything and everywhere, and wherever they go, they'll consume it all. Matter of fact, pretty much smell, don't they? Something smells funny about goats. The only thing they produce really is milk. Goat's milk. Which is, it's good. But, if you have a diet of only milk and cheese, isn't it time to grow up and get into some meat? It's interesting about lamb chops. I really like lamb chops. They're kind of like sheep, and that's meat. Sheep have meat. Have you ever eaten a goat? Stringy meat. Ew. I don't think I want to eat a goat. But I don't mind eating sheep. Because they're meat. Meat indeed. Matter of fact, if you eat a sheep, you would say, oh, taste and see, the sheep are good indeed. Interesting, isn't it? About how stupid, about how dumb, about how, maybe how bad the story is about what we keep saying is wrong with the sheep when we're talking about ourselves. Because the truth is, sheep aren't stupid. Sheep are doing exactly what God created them to do. As a matter of fact, sheep are a perfect example of how a Christian should be. Christians should be like sheep, and every analogy that you thought of, as far as thinking how stupid the sheep are, is talking about someone who doesn't know sheep, or doesn't raise sheep, or doesn't shear sheep, or doesn't protect the sheep, or doesn't feed the sheep, or doesn't take the sheep to waters, or doesn't take care of the sheep, or doesn't give his life for the sheep. Now does he? Because he's calling the sheep stupid. That with which God has called good. Dare we say how stupid they really are? Or are we really finding people that are goat ropers? Goat ropers. You know what a goat roper is? He's a guy who has to take care of the goats. He's been dealing with goats so long, he has no clue what a sheep is. Because the sheep are nice. They're easy to take care of. Matter of fact, you call them by name, they come. You can call them and they'll follow you. As a matter of fact, the Good Shepherd told me that with that good housekeeping seal of approval, the way that he demonstrated that he was the last, criteria. They have all this checklist that you have to check off in order to be a good shepherd. You had to do this, feed them, protect them, take care of them, make sure that they're eating properly, make sure they're drinking properly, make sure they get everything they need, and that nothing invades them and nothing hurts them, and that they are safe and secure, and that if they know how to cry out when it's trouble coming, or they know how to, do all these things that we say are stupid about sheep. Those were all the things that were on the checklist. And then the last thing that was the most important thing that the Good Shepherd had to prove, he had to walk in front of them. He had to go and call the sheep to follow him. And once he left, the sheep started following. And they followed him. And once they did, bingo, he received that good housekeeping seal of approval from his Father in heaven. Matter of fact, that's exactly what it is. His Father in heaven. Because that's where the big house is. That's where the good housekeeping seal of approval is when it comes to taking care of sheep. Because the next time you call a sheep stupid, you're looking in the mirror at a goat. Pardon me. Because you really don't know what sheep are. Because I am a sheep. Now, let's talk about goats for a minute. Goat ropers, now, they're kind of interesting. It's like goat ropers are kind of funny because, when I was practicing in Norco how to rope, I'd rope goats. Because I was graduating upward towards cattle. Because eventually I'd kind of rope a calf. Rope a sow pig, But to practice, you rope goats. So we call them goat ropers. You put on your country western boots, you put on your Levi's, you get a little lariat, and you kind of work your slip knot, and you kind of make sure you slick it too, because you're cheating at first, you got to make a slick slip knot so that it just slides, because, man, that rope stuff, it just kind of like sticks, so you get a good, slick job of putting some slick stuff on the rope, whatever it may be, oil if you're cheating so nobody can see it. But anyways, the point is that you take that rope, and you got it open, and you're kind of twirling it with your wrist, and you go, and you throw it at a goat, and if you catch him, yank him, boom, boom, man, he hits the ground, he comes up, and he chases you. That's not a sheep. I thought the sheep just stood still and take it. Not goats. They'll come back and they'll spit at you. Matter of fact, have you ever been spit at by a goat? Have you ever been bad, told out or talked to by a goat? Have you ever been bit by a goat? Have you ever been clawed by a goat? Have you ever been butted by a goat? You know what? I think goats are people. Oh, now there's a sheep story for you. Maybe if you figure out everything there is about goats, you'll know what goats are, and you'll know what sheep are. Because now you know the rest of the story, as somebody used to tell me on the radio. So, dare I say, I'm going to stand with Occupy Sheepfold. I'm going to stand with the sheep that know the Good Shepherd. I'm going to take my case before the Good Housekeeping seal of approval and see if I can't become a good shepherd. Because there's a lot of shepherds out there. Now, I don't know if they're goat ropers, in disguise. If they've been so long with the goats they don't know how to treat the sheep. Or if they got some goats mixed in with the sheep. Or if maybe they're kind of like, don't know what they're doing. Or maybe they're just kind of confused because they've been dealing with wolves in sheep's clothing, with the flock. After all, you don't really want to single them out, do you? You let the wheat grow tares under your feet. Let's be honest. Did you know all along you were a sheep? Or didn't you really want to be a lion of Judah? I got news for you. In the same way that people are mistaking the story of sheep, people mistake the ideas of lions, because the Bible warns you about young lions. Be careful what you wish for. You may become it. And if you really don't know the Middle East and taking care of sheep, and the East as far as the West is concerning a lot of times, a lot of what Jesus had to say to us, being the good shepherd that he is, and he was talking to people who knew sheep, I wonder if maybe such a deal. Oi, I could have been a Jew. Or maybe I am. Huh? Oi, my keeper. But having said that, the Jewish good shepherd who takes care of his sheep in a Jewish way, or a good housekeeping seal of approval, or because his father taught him how, and his father said he created them and they were good, maybe we should take a second look at things, a third and a fourth and a fifth, and not be so quick to slam things and damn things and call things stupid or sheep or goats or whatever it may be, without realizing maybe we're calling ourselves stupid by what we're saying and doing. So that's kind of what inspired me today. That's kind of what has been all along something I learned, I hate to say it, 40 years ago about sheep. And since that time I have heard Calvary pastors, I have heard Protestants, I have heard Catholics, I have heard Greek Orthodox, I have heard Russian Orthodox. I've heard just about everybody you can imagine tell me about how stupid sheep are. Do you know what is interesting to me? It's going to sound a little weird for a minute, but just bear with me. But I've never heard an Orthodox Jew tell me how stupid sheep were. Because, it's just kind of like, if God said in the beginning it was good, they don't go along down the road and say it was bad. You see, a Jewish mind says, hey, if it's true there, it's got to be true there. You kind of got to keep it the same. If it's not true there, why isn't it true in the first place? Because if it's true in the first, it's true in the last. It's called Alpha and Omega in Christianity. But, people like to step on one side without examining the other side. And maybe if they were only dealing with goats all the time because they didn't know how to deal with sheep, and they haven't been to the Middle East, and they don't know about Middle Eastern sheep that are different than, say, westernized, cultivated, white fluffy sheep, or Dublin's best, the Irish version of sheep, or the Scottish, or the English, or the Wales. Maybe they don't know all there is about the good housekeeping seal of approval to be a good shepherd. Maybe there is more to sheep than meets the eye, and maybe there's more to this perspective of looking at one side of the coin without looking at the other and finding the truth standing in the volume of the book. Because as surely as the East is from the West, I'm not out in left field and I'm not out in right field. I have the East and the West in my hands. You see, even then too, I won't call it right-handed or left-handed. I'll call it east and west, baby, because that's what God has me in. He has brought it together in a complete picture and made it holy unto me. And so I praise the Lord that I can see God as the good shepherd. Because if I saw stupid sheep underneath a good shepherd, I'd call the shepherd stupid and not the sheep. He that is mighty, he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. The foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his. Let every one that nameth the name of Jesus depart from iniquity. Many, oh so many, will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And, in thy name have we cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. The Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. Set me as a seal upon thy heart. As a seal upon thine arm, place me, Jesus. Let me be your defense. Let me be your strong tower. Let me be the one you call unto in time of trouble. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Now I know there's, in the West, a popular culture of asserting yourself, a popular culture of being the alpha male, a popular culture of being the dominant person, the popular culture of being in charge, the head honcho, the big cheese, the macho macado, the el jefe, el padre, but no matter what it is, somebody wants to be above, but not assembled together. Jesus calls out by name those that are his. He assembles together those that he calls out. He has them come together in a bunch, his sheep. So I don't see this whole idea of where the West pushes so hard the kings and priests. Because in the East, you learn to be a servant of all. Because you need each other. You need to be together. You need to assemble together. You need to listen to the voice of your good shepherd, to follow him. You need to be in that bunch. And while you think, because you're told by a goat roper, that's an open invitation of being defenseless. In fact, the reality of Elisha, the reality of every single occasion where those that trusted in the Lord with all their heart, leaning not in their own understanding, in all their ways acknowledging him and letting him direct their path, the good shepherd was there, and the good shepherd delivered them. And they could not trust in the arm of man, they could not trust in horses, they could not trust in chariots, they could not trust in any other thing, but they trusted in the Lord, and the Lord delivered them. So you see, the reality of the Bible is true. The Word of God is a fact. The stories we tell aren't necessarily accurate. And the commentaries that we comment on sometimes are the worst way to present the truth. Because the accuracy of what is the belt of truth around us should always, in every story, in every word, in every deed, in every action, in every symbolic meaning that we try to use, even in our very daily lives, if it doesn't have Jesus on it, and if it's not his name, then it's a lie. Because he is the truth. And I'm sorry. I see so many good ideas, so many nice stories, so many platitudes and latitudes and longitudes, all done in the name of Christ by Jew and Gentile. But you know what? His sheep hear his voice, and they will not follow the voice of another. I know them and I call them by name. Jesus knows you. Jesus loves you. Jesus is your good shepherd. And you are the sheep of his pasture.